I'm super excited to be with my new friend, Nora Gedgaudas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Amy. It is such a pleasure and an honor to be here.
After a lot of stops and starts, we finally connected. I've been wanting to get you on the show forever. I actually have known of you for a very long time because I know your roots go back with Weston A. Price and the Price Pottinger Foundation.
Well, I'm not that old, but yeah.
I know you're a prominent figure there and a big contributor. I was reading about you decades ago in your work, and it's one of the coolest things, Nora, about having this show, which is truly a labor of love, and my offering to the world is the people that I get to connect with. And like someone like you, it's decades later, I get to actually sit down and have a discussion with you. And even better, we can become friends and colleagues. It's such a beautiful full circle moment for someone like me of like, oh, wow, I'm giving the other people by giving them this. But at the same time, what a blessing for me, too. So it is an honor.
And those of us that are cut from a similar cloth, we need to be connected. This is a time where it's very important for us to know who our so-called tribe is.
And who we can trust. I love how you mentioned that on so many wonderful blog posts that I remember one of them in particular, Nora, you had the word trustworthy, and you had, I believe it's one whole word, right? Trustworthy, but you had worthy in bold. And I just thought that was so ingenious. It made me double read it. And I was like, oh, that is a very good point. Trustworthy.
Trust is not bestowed, it's earned.
There you go. And that's the tricky part, discernment, right? I guess we can dive in. Do you have any wisdom on how we discern? The experts say, trust the science. This one says that. The authorities and people know what they don't know. And on our humility, we're like, but I don't know who to believe. Who do I trust? So do you have any thoughts on that?
Well,
how do we discern?
The so-called wheat and chaff got separated 4 or 5 years ago, where a lot of us learned who our friends were, right? And we figured out how to, I didn't really, quote unquote, lose many friends. Like the people that were really important in my life, who I really loved, I still love. But some seemed to be more subsumed by the chaos of the time and fear of the time. And there were others who just sort of, we looked at each other and went, yeah, we need to get the hell out of here. The moment all that started going down, I had been waiting for something like that to happen. So I recognized it immediately when they started talking about lockdowns, which of course is not a medical term, it's a prison term. I thought, okay, they're playing for all the marbles this time. It's time to go. And I had a beautiful, spiritually centering home. It was a humble home, about 1,000 square feet in Portland, Oregon. The belly of the beast.
God,
yeah, right. I had such a great life there. The landscape was breathtaking of the Pacific Northwest, and there were great restaurants and orchards and wineries, and just and the ocean was there, and this Cascade Mountains was fantastic. And I had such a sense of family there. I knew so many people, and it was a really good. I had my private practice that was super successful. Everything was great. Until it wasn't anymore. And when that happened, I realized that what I had loved most about being there, that was kind of over. It was done. And that it was time to go. And it was time to go while my home was still worth something, where I could still get enough for it to do something, worthwhile elsewhere. And then I started on a journey. I went through probably 5 different states looking for an off-grid property, preferably a plug-and-play situation. I was overwhelmingly fortunate enough to find one.
How did you find it? Did you have a realtor?
The times where I tried to connect with realtors, it just wasn't. I was looking in some different places. Some places I found on my own. Others, I contacted realtors in places I thought I might be interested in looking. I didn't get very much from that. There was a place called survivalrealty.com. I put in what I was looking for and where I was hoping to find it. They have, you can set that up. And it was a Sunday morning in Portland, Oregon. And I just gotten up and I had my cave woman hair and my bathrobe and fuzzy slippers. And I'm sitting down with my first cup of morning coffee, and this little alert came through. And I looked And I went, shit. I got to get dressed and pack my bags, and I've got to drive 8 hours and go look at this place because it's going to be gone. And I made an immediate call to the realtor here and said, I'm coming. I want to look at it tomorrow morning. And they said, great. And I came and I looked at it, and it's an enormous home, roughly the same size you have. It's huge. I've always lived in small, cozy places. And if I were going to build something from scratch, it'd be small and cozy.
Me too.
I could see this place. It's a very well-built log home. It's a beautiful log home, but
oh, wow.
There were a lot of things that needed updating and a lot of things that needed work. And I'm thinking, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. But I'm looking at the land and going, I will never find anything like this ever again, you know? And so I ended up making an offer. Somebody else made an offer at the same time. There was a bidding war. I had met the owner and we connected nicely. I wrote him a nice letter and it resonated with him. He gave me the upper hand in the deal. And then, and there was somebody who's pretty well known within kind of ancestral health space. And I won't name names, but they showed up a week later with a garbage bag full of cash and tried to talk the owner into choosing them, you know, whatever. And it's like, well, no, we've already got a contract. So,
oh, good. Someone with integrity.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Let's back up a more for the audience. You are in an off-grid home. Can you explain to people what that is? You mentioned log cabin, but you bought a large off-grid home. What is that?
Off-grid can mean a lot of different things. Yeah. I've lived in an off-grid situation where there was an outhouse. I had to haul water in, and there was no easy way to grow things there. It was like hunting, fishing, and foraging.
No electricity, right?
No electricity, no centralized electrical grid, right? No access to public utilities at all.
Is there running water? Is there plumbing?
I do have running water and plumbing. There is a large spring up on the hill, a mountain spring. There's about 5,000 gallon holding tank so that there's always a surplus that is piped down the hill and gravity feeds right into the house.
Electricity is one thing. No plumbing and running water is another.
There are normal flush toilets in this house and normal faucets. And I have solar and hydroelectric power here.
Okay, so there's no central electric, but you do have
electricity.
You know, is it limited? Do you have to pick and choose what you're running at one time?
I actually don't have to be that concerned about it.
Okay.
You know? Solar is one of those things that's not fully reliable. You get the biggest panels and the biggest battery bank. You can store the energy.
Store it.
We're having a lot of rain here today. On a day like today, there's not a lot coming in. But thankfully, with hydroelectric, it is constantly trickling into the batteries and supporting, keeping the batteries topped off so that, you know, I don't have to worry. And it runs year round. I don't have to worry in the winter about being overly conservative. I try to be a little more conservative in the winter, but I don't try that hard, actually. It's you know, you flip a switch on, the light comes on, and can run a vacuum cleaner. I can blow dry my hair, which is important.
You're not totally roughing it, Nora. I think when a person hears off grid, they think outhouse and, you know.
Like a show like Alone or Survival.
You live in a semi-tent.
But the effort here is to be as self-sufficient as possible. So there's a huge food forest surrounding the property.
Did you put that in, or was that already there?
It was there, but I've added to it. And there is a huge mature orchard with about 30 some odd different varieties of things growing in it. And then I put in a greenhouse, a 4-season greenhouse, and a big garden area with raised beds. And then there's a sloped garden. You can grow different things there. And
did you know about gardening, or did you have to learn when you moved in?
What I'm hearing from a lot of people now when I talk about this is like, oh, yeah, you know, my friends, you know, we're thinking about doing that. You know, I'm thinking maybe in a couple years, we're going to get some land, grow our own food. And they don't know what they're talking about.
They romanticize it big time.
They don't understand that even if you have some gardening experience, if you're living in a completely new location with a new climate and different arrays of insects and different kinds of pests.
Soil.
I had to truck in a lot of organic soil.
Water table.
There is an irrigation system running through the property and lots of little frost-free spigots around the property where I can access water. There's no shortage of water at all up here.
Well,
But
because I know you're in Idaho, but do the winters, do you get winter there? Does it freeze?
oh yeah. In fact, we're going to be getting snow tomorrow night for the first time. And that's why I'm wearing this fuzzy thing because it's probably 40 some odd degrees outside right now. But
okay, so it's similar to Massachusetts, it sounds a little bit, because I'm in northern Mass.
This particular area seems to get snow and have a few feet of snow in the yard in the winter, but the temperatures are very forgiving. It typically hovers around freezing. And to get anything approaching 0 or below is quite rare.
There's a big difference between the teens and freezing. You're right.
I grew up in Minnesota. We're talking 40, 50 below. So when people say, oh, it's cold out, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about.
And the key is the wind, right? That wind chill, because the real field temperature is dependent on the wind, and the wind can be the determining factor. Another
fortunate thing about my particular location on the mountain is that it's fairly protected from wind most of the time.
Amazing.
Unless, it depends on which way the wind is blowing. I did have one windstorm this summer that caught us completely off guard, and it came with hail, but it didn't create any damage. It was like, oh my, the wind can blow here. But mostly it's protected. It's a lot of acreage, and there's a lot of fire mitigation. There are no earthquakes here. Don't get tornadoes here. Don't get floods here. No tsunamis. Those typical things most people worry about as a possibility wherever they are. And certainly where I was in the Pacific Northwest, like constantly waiting for the big Cascadia fault to go. None of that here. No local volcanoes that aren't extinct. And so the only thing we really have to worry about is wildfire. And that's a real concern. So I've done a lot of mitigation work around the property, constantly working at knocking down underbrush in the forest to minimize the ladder fuels.
So you left basically your dream home where you had family, community, a thriving business. You had the mountains, the ocean, the beautiful home, the property, everything situated. You're living off grid in another gorgeous setup and home, but obviously different. What are some things that surprised you or you didn't expect, going to the off-grid lifestyle that might be heads up for someone wanting to do that? Because a big part of my show after 2020 turned a little bit of a pivot into helping people be more self-sufficient. Obviously, holistic health and wellness is a huge part of Awakening Aphrodite, but we can't do that if we're not able to eat right and have clean water and have sovereignty over our freedom and our food and friends. So what would be some things that surprised you, Nora, about going off-grid that you didn't know when you moved there? Maybe heads up to others or advice like, hey, if you want to go off-grid, make sure you do this or that.
So I wasn't surprised by too much because I've had an off-grid situation before. There's a learning curve that you have to be prepared for. I've never been that much of a gardener. I know there are people that love their gardens. I'm not one of those people that likes puttering around. Learning the ins and outs and learning how to plan based on what you eat the most of and how to plan things in a way where you're trying to stagger harvests and be able to grow enough, say, onions to last the winter kind of a thing. Yep.
And then how to preserve them. But go to the next step, right? You grow them all, but you got to can them and all that stuff.
One thing I regret that I can't have up here because I don't have on-grid electricity is one of these food dehydrators, or not dehydrators.
Freeze dryers.
Freeze dryers, yes. Like one of those harvest freeze dryers.
You can't have one.
They use thousands of watts. I mean, you have to run each batch for a couple of days and it would absolutely suck the battery bank dry. They take a lot of electricity. So that's not a possibility. But other than that, dehydrating, canning, freezing, refrigeration and freezing and things.
You taught yourself how to do all that? Yeah.
But too, there's no such thing as a weekend on a homestead.
No, or a day off.
And there's no need for a gym membership.
It's called Farm Fit.
Right? It's like every single day. In the wintertime, I've had to chop and stack, several cords of wood, because heat with wood in the winter, have some supplemental propane heat, but there may come a time when there's no more propane. So the thing that one has to learn to do is really just constantly think like an Eagle Scout, right? What are my basic needs and how am I meeting those needs? What happens if something happens to that way of doing things? like there's no more propane. Okay, well,
like a backup. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the backup system to that? And then what is the backup to that backup system? Should things go sideways? What kinds of things do I take for granted day to day? Just little things like cooking spices. If the grocery store shelves go empty, there may be no more salt for preservation or cooking spices. And so figuring out how to maybe stock up on some of those things, or just, constantly having to think about when I go to the grocery store, which actually, the town closest to me, let's just say that I don't consider most of what's sold in the grocery store to be food, right?
It's always cracked me up how they have all the food and then they have the aisle labeled natural foods.
Right.
Or healthy foods. So the rest of the aisles are what?
Or they have an organic section that's about this big, right? Yeah. And of course, we know what's happened to the organic standards. I no longer, there aren't any restaurants that I feel comfortable going to. Right?
Yep. It's really sad.
And so I have to be thinking about those things like all the time. You never really get a break.
What's tough, Nora, is like when you don't feel well yourself, or you're just tired. Like you said, you don't get a day. But the animals need to be fed. The dogs need to go out. The chickens need fresh water. You got to clean the coop. The chores
have to get done. You've got to resurrect
every day.
Fortunately, I haven't been sick. It's good because I can't really afford to be. There are mornings it's like, oh God, I don't feel like dealing with this.
It's raining and freezing.
This morning, I had to go down and take care of something way on a distant part of the property. And I'm going, I really don't feel, it's pouring out there. It's cold. It's yucky. I just want to sit here and drink coffee and maybe light a fire or something.
And I get a day off. No. So, the glamour, it fades fast, but probably like anything in life, right? Yeah. The novelty wears off. And I think there is a lot of backlash in the homesteading world of people that did what you said. I'm going to get land. We're going to get cows. We're going to get goats. We're going to get chickens. And then all of a sudden they're trying to
have to think about their needs. And, by the way, there may come a time where you can't buy feed.
Yes.
So if you have something like rabbits, and you know what you're doing, you can actually grow everything they need for free and on your property.
And chickens, you can grow a lot too. The fodder, I know I've planted some stuff myself. But of course, I'm in a situation where it's only probably 6 months out of the year it's going to grow.
Exactly.
So I thought about that. Like, what am I going to do in the winter?
And that's a real issue for poultry, right? And so you have to be thinking constantly about maybe raising your own mealworms and those kinds of things, right?
I don't know if I can do that.
It's actually so easy.
Yeah.
And not a big deal.
Well, I'm currently researching how to grow my own sprouts for them. At least I'm starting. Every week I have a project. I got the mason jar at the counter. It seems relatively easy. I did watch a mealworm video.
There's a little circular tray system I'll share with you later. I can't remember the name of the company right now. But the way it works, you pour the water in the top. And then each little tray has this little set of seeds, and it drains through each of the trays and moistens them exactly right. And you don't have problems with mold, and you can grow large numbers of them, and you can have a couple different ones going.
I love that.
And it is really a great system.
Sold. Because exactly what you're saying. We're recording this in mid-October, and today happens to be, like I mentioned, the wind chill is probably in the 30s. It's sunny, but very cold. And so my eye is already on, oh my gosh, this is going to be my first winter, Nora, that I've had chickens. So it's been lovely over the summer, and people are like, do you like it? I'm like, yeah, it's really fun, and they're just hysterical. They crack me up, and I love them. They're very affectionate. The chicken world is a whole subculture, which I had no idea of.
There is a subculture with chickens. Yeah.
The best analogy I can give people is like dogs. Like people love dogs. Like there's chicken people like that. There's a chicken world of the same caliber.
I have friends in town or whatever that are raising chicken. Yeah, it's like a whole.
Yeah. For good reason. They're very analogous to dogs. They have specific breeds with characteristics and personalities. But anyway, my point is I'm already going, Oh boy, the bloom is coming off the rose here. I had a lovely time in the summer, but it's freezing. I can't do anything with gloves on. My fingers can't articulate, so I got to take them off and my hands freeze.
Well, the issue with chickens in a winter environment is one of the reasons I chose not to do chickens. Well, number one is because of the winter environment, which is hard on chickens.
Yeah.
They're not northern climate birds, and they are prone to things like frostbite. But the other thing is they do make a fair amount of noise. And because I live in a wilderness environment, when I step outside, I want to hear the wind, the golden eagles screeching overhead. I want to, hear the elk bugling and whatever, I want to feel, I don't want to hear whatever.
Yeah.
But the other issue is that I have an immune reactivity to chicken eggs, so I can't eat them.
Oh, then what's the point?
Right. Then what's the point? Right. Yeah. But I can do duck eggs, which I prefer anyway. And
quail.
Ducks there's a duck culture also.
And there's a lot of people that are into ducks. I don't know. Maybe one day I'll build a duck house down by.
I am convinced their primary purpose in this world is simply to delight us.
Really?
They are so funny.
Ducks
waddling, they're happy, and
okay. So what do you think about
sounds?
What about geese? Are they similar to geese?
They're not. I mean, they're both waterfowl. I actually have one intrepid male goose named Zeus, and he's their guardian. Now he's a prey animal too, obviously. But if anything is going on that I need to know about, I will hear him.
He alerts you. I thought about getting a goose for that reason. I've heard they are very protective.
They are protective, and so geese are actually much easier than ducks or chickens, actually.
Okay.
They're herbivores.
Yeah.
Now, Zeus happens to love mealworms, but it's just like crack cocaine for him. I don't know. But geese mostly are not known for foraging for bugs and small amphibians and things like that, or fish. They're grazers like deer. They need their greens. They love their greens.
Really?
They can eat some of the same food that ducks do, but they'll graze. Last winter, I noticed that when I let the ducks out, they were immediately foraging. They're amazing foragers, and they have a huge fenced in protected area, and they have a little spring-fed pond to swim in and stuff like that. So they can forage for most of what they need.
But wait a minute. Your geese... Wait, your ducks stay in a yard? They're not just kind of wild? Explain that.
No, because I live in a place where there are mountain lions and grizzly bears and bobcats and lynx and fishers and pine martens. There are a lot of predators. So they need a protected space. Domestic ducks can't fly. They carry too much weight for their wings to get them off the ground for more than a couple of feet.
And the predators can't get in through the fence?
It's an electrified fence, solar electrified fence. And it's tall. The area they're in has a lot of cover, and they have a covered run and a coop where they are all night. I put them to bed every single night. I tuck them in and holler, all good duckies, time to go to bed. So I had 5 ducks, and I lost one a couple of months ago to something called egg binding. I still,
that sucks.
So every single night, I sing a little customized lullaby to each of them. They each get a lullaby, and they love their lullaby. I tell them to go to bed, and they go to bed. And
that's awesome.
Make sure that they're closed in and they're protected. They're very well protected at night. And the coop is insulated. But the cool thing about ducks is they have so you go to REI and you buy yourself a down jacket. Guess what it's filled with?
Yeah.
Duck feathers, right?
Sure.
A duck down and goose down. Tolerate cold temperatures extremely well. They love the rain, which chickens don't. They love when it rains. They're just having a great time.
Yep.
And they are very robust. They don't have a lot of problems with diseases or maladies, especially, I have a heritage breed. They're very robust and funny. I have a little park bench in their area. It looks like a little city park. I'll go down in the afternoon with a beverage and just sit there and watch them because they're funny.
Do you have dogs?
They follow me around. I do not have a dog. I had a wonderful cat for 20 years, and he passed away a couple months ago. I still have a hard time with that, but I am thinking about getting one, partly because of the companionship, but also because the breed I'm thinking about has good protective instincts and would be alert to problems and issues. And I actually have a background in raising and having dogs, and also raising wolves even. And
Really?
I'm really good at training. I mean, I just know a lot about dog training. I haven't had the need for 20 years or more.
Just instinctually, you know about it?
No, I studied it, and I made sure that my animals were all extremely well trained. I have the acreage and I have the time, and the companionship would also be great. I'm thinking about that, but I'm not sure yet. The other issue, of course, is that there are a lot of wild creatures that come onto the property. It's a wilderness area, and part of what gives me great joy is just all of the wildlife.
I have 2 large protection dogs. I didn't plan on it, but one is a rescue. It is such a trade-off because right when I moved in, the first thing I did was put in fencing. I also have 2 little dogs. I have 4 dogs. That wasn't the plan, which is a whole long story. I put in the fence for the little dogs because my large dogs are service dogs. They're extremely well behaved. They don't need leashes. So I put in the fence. But before I moved in, there were deer up around the perimeter of my house, rabbits. It's the trade-off. The big dogs scare away the coyotes.
It's possible to train the dogs to not harass the deer and not go after them.
Actually, I train them to guard the chickens. They're very good. And my little ones too. I wouldn't say the little ones guard the chickens, but they leave them alone. The chickens are bigger than the little ones. Basically, the big dogs will guard the chickens.
Don't put up with crap. Yeah.
I have a rooster, which is another story. I didn't plan on getting a rooster, but one revealed that he was a rooster.
It wasn't like a gender fluid thing. I think
I am identifying as a rooster today.
Yeah.
No, I don't have that. But my point is I know what you're saying is that I did see a male buck back on my garden about in the beginning of the spring, a deer. But it makes me a little sad because I know the deer are out there and I don't see them as much. But here's the trade-off, though. I sleep with my windows open to hear the crickets and the sounds. But I get every night coyotes. I swear they're in our yard. They're right out the door howling.
Yeah.
So
for livestock,
the good thing is they're keeping some, but they're keeping away all. But I will say it does give me a little comfort that I do have 2 big dogs because I know one dog, a friend of mine that had one large dog, and the dog got ganged up on by coyotes because, they attack in packs.
Right, sure.
So the 2 dogs work together and they're stronger, together than just as one solo dog. Even if it's an amazing protection dog, it's not as insulated as having a partner.
Right.
Anyway,
I understand.
But
when you live in a wilderness environment, there are going to be predators. There's going to be things that you have to allow for. For instance, there's not a resident grizzly population, but they do come through once in a while. We have black bear, quite a few black bear, and all these kinds of things. I got a grizzly-proof locker for the garbage that I keep way down, away from the house.
Yeah,
I know there's no way a grizzly will get in there. These neighbors of mine, and most of my neighbors are also kind of off grid, which is nice. Everybody kind of has that self-sufficient spirit so that we understand each other really well. If the wheels fall off of everything, everybody knows how to take care of themselves. So I don't have to worry about my neighbors coming to try to take what I have. So there's security in that too. Mm-hmm. Those neighbors saw me putting up that grizzly box and they're like, I wonder why Nora put that so far from the house. That very night, a black bear got into their garbage can and just made an unholy mess all over their yard. And then they felt that they had to shoot the bear. And it's like, that's what I don't want to have to do. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the bear's fault. Once the bear learns that there's something, you have to do something with it. I just try to avoid those things up front. My orchard is surrounded by a 10-foot fence.
Yeah.
The deer can't get in. The bears can't get in. Nothing's ever tried. And the garden area is also completely fenced in. Yeah. You have to adjust what you do for the fact that there are predators around. I'm definitely a Second Amendment person. So if I go to a far end of the property, I've seen mountain lions come right through my front yard. They're here. They're around. I'm not afraid of any of that. I'm a wilderness person. I've never been afraid in the forest, but I also know that realistically, these things can be threatening. Most of the time, they're not looking to come after you. But if you startle one out when you're out on the far end of the property in the middle of nowhere, you need to have something handy, to protect yourself with if possible. I've never had to do that, but it's a completely different life. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. I always knew my whole life I was going to end up like this. This was sort of the plan from when I was 5 years old on. So I always knew this is what I wanted ultimately. And so it was just time. But you are forced to take care of yourself and be present for everything and everyone that needs you. And you don't get a day off. I don't have a thermostat where I can just say, okay, I'm cold. I want to turn the heat up. I mean, I have a propane heater if I have to have it as a supplemental thing, but I heat with wood, which means that I have to be thinking about that all summer long, taking down dead stand and bucking it up, splitting it up and stacking it so that when winter comes, I'm ready. And
one of my biggest concerns cutting wood and stuff. Have you ever gotten hurt, like had a medical emergency? I cut my finger pretty good the other day. Like little things like that. I'd have all the tourniquets and this and that. But still, at the end of the day, if you're by yourself and you get really hurt.
Okay. So a couple different things. One thing I'll say, I have enough I don't have EMT background or anything like that, but I have enough medical background where if I'm not feeling well, I know how to take care of myself very well. I fear nothing that way. But I'll give this company a plug because I think they're wonderful people. I don't have any financial ties with them whatsoever, but it's called Alton Medical, Alton Medical. And it's a medical doctor and registered nurse, husband and wife, that are kind of off-grid people. They have a book. I recommend getting the color version that's spiral bound off their website. It's called, I believe it's called Survival Medicine When Help Isn't Coming. It's about this thick, but when you open it, it lays flat. It has color, and it's a complete guide to what you do if certain things. Now, obviously, you have a gunshot wound. You're not going to be, okay, page 34, whatever, or you chainsaw your leg off or something. But they have, you can get these little USB things where they have just a ton of videos that show you how to deal with various types of medical emergencies. And they have the most complete, highest quality medical kits. There's some with flashier, slicker marketing, but honestly, their stuff is better. They have kits that will cover whole families, and they have specialty stuff for dental stuff, for gunshot wounds, for just like everything. And you have to spend some time with it and study. Yep. But there is an emergency nurse that lives in the neighborhood. So that's somebody I would call upon if there was something really serious. And also there's a company called Life Flight. And I'm not sure where all they operate. I know they exist out here in the West. You pay like $60 a year, and they will come by helicopter if you have a medical emergency and lift you out to a medical facility. One of my neighbors had a heart attack last year, and they called Life Flight in the middle of the night, and the helicopter came and took them to a hospital in Denver. So you have those kinds of things. But obviously, you're constantly thinking in terms of safety and prevention.
Be conscious. That happened to me the other day. It hurt my neck so bad. I was lifting a 55-pound bag of layer pellets, and I just got that tweak, and I actually felt something snap in my neck, and I was like, Jesus, I just broke my neck. But it was just a second, right? It's a split second. I know better. I was rushing. I just wasn't. And it was so stupid, right? And then
those moments of being unfocused,
the rest of your life, you can regret it, My neck still hurts.
The most dangerous thing on any homestead is anything involving chainsaws or clearing equipment. Those are the worst imaginable things.
Oh my God.
You want to have safety equipment, and you want to be religious about using it. You want to wear those protective chaps,
the glasses,
the helmet, and the glasses, and
even with the weed whacker, right?
The little stray thing comes flying,
like going at 200 miles an hour, flying at your head. You mentioned in the beginning about trust and community, and it's always important. This is the new economy. I'd like to switch gears into that a little bit.
Sure.
How did you find your new community? You're on 50 acres, pretty not close together. How did you personally find your new local tribe? I know you're all over the world with people that know you. But
I am, yeah. I'm better friends with some neighbors than others.
how did you actually connect?
You move into an area like this and the locals are going to pay attention to you and probably come by to check you out and see if you're okay or not. So,
okay.
I don't know. I've just gradually been meeting more and more people in the area and increasingly feeling this wonderful sense of, we have each other's backs, right?
Just
and we just enjoy each other.
Out in town, like you're at the store and you meet a local person, or how do you act?
There have been people that I've met, one family I'm really good friends with. The husband had a business working on wood stoves and I needed to get my chimney cleaned and have some things inspected. He came up here and we just totally bonded. And he says, my wife would love you guys. And I've gotten to know that family. We help each other out. And we also just really enjoy each other. And other people, I have another neighbor that lives bordering my property, woman who built her own cabin and has her own acreage. And she's has an outhouse and, all that kind of stuff and has to haul in water. She's been here a long time and appreciates a lot of the same things. There are other people you meet here and there. Sometimes it'll be people that come up that I hired to do this or that. And we realize, wow, we really connect. Come on up sometime. We'll do dinner or barbecues and get to know people that way. There was a local group that met. And I realized that I didn't really resonate with that particular group. But I have had an opportunity to meet a lot of people just going to town or having people come up here. There are lots of different ways of meeting people and making friends. And it's really important to know who that community is. When I feel a potential for a really good connection, I make a point of nurturing that connection.
For sure.
My friend Catherine Austin Fitz said, the currency of the future are relationships of trust, the most important currency of the future. And ultimately, I hate to break it to people because I know we're in an election cycle, but nobody's coming to save us except each other, right? What you do on a local level will influence the quality of your life more than anything you could hope for on a national level. One of the non-compromising things when I was looking for property was that it had to be a constitutional county, one where I knew the sheriff was going to honor his oath to protect the people that elected him, right? And protect the rights and sovereignty of the good people in the county that elected him. And so he and his deputies, and that's another thing. Most important, probably relationship you can forge is with your local law enforcement. Yeah. Because they're going to be the last stop before government overreach, right? Those are the people that are going to either have your back or not. And you better know where they stand on things that matter to you and whether or not they're willing to, to protect you in your way of life. And so that's a really important piece. Ultimately, the way we get through this time period is by forging those local communities of trust. I'm on the board of the Price Pottinger Nutrition Foundation, which is a 73-year-old organization. We've recently created something called the Food Freedom Project. To me, that helps to form the basis for how we as a human community get through this time period. It really has to do with, we were talking before we started recording about how it's really important to support your local farmer and know who they are and those relationships. Yes, absolutely. But I am also of the belief that it is very important to become your local farmer to the extent that you can, right? But here's the deal. I'm kind of trying to do it all where I am, but most of the time that's just not practical.
Thank you for saying that. Yes.
Right. Because this person over here, raises chickens. Well, maybe somebody down the road has dairy goats and then somebody else, they're really good at hunting and fishing, or this person knows all about foraging, or, this person has some beef cattle. You figure out who those allies are, you forge a relationship and make a very conscious point of getting together and saying, okay, how can we support each other? How can we support each other's strengths and shore up each other's weaknesses, right? Food freedom isn't about learning how to grow tomatoes and zucchini in your backyard. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I do some of that. But it's very hard to meet the needs of an entire family or even just one or two people on one little piece of land.
Next to impossible. Even fixing your car, like you can't do everything, or the plumbing, the toilet breaks. Do you know how to plumb?
Yep.
Do you know how to run an electrical line? Who's your kid going to marry? I don't know.
That would be a challenge because I don't have children, but I think that it can be tough for young people. I guess it depends on the constitution of the young people. I have a couple of friends, they're expat Canadians living in Nicaragua. They're expert homesteaders and total permaculture experts. They were talking about coming and living with me for a while, but they ended up with some really good opportunities where they are, and that's just fine. But they have a couple of kids that are in their teens, and fortunately for them, they love homesteading. They just love everything about living on a homestead, doing stuff, taking care of animals and growing things. But if you're living a city life with your family and now you want to take your teenagers and your 10-year-old out to the wilderness, it's a lot of culture shock.
Especially for a teen, like a young kid who was all about friends and all that. You mentioned in your blog, which I really hope people check out because there's quality content there, that a key word is bartering. That anything that you can collect in bulk that might have worth or value to others struggling to get by is going to give you the most tangible sense of transactional wealth you can hope for should we face an economic collapse. I think this is so important, talking about the new world economy and the tangibles, right? Yes, trustworthy relationships, absolutely foundational. And the next tier would be tangible assets, skills, things. Yes, gold and silver, but also food, maybe animals or services you can provide.
Or even storing up on liquor, cigarettes.
Ammunition, batteries, all these things are going to be
Look, like even when I lived in Portland, and particularly, I mean, I could see there was going to be something like a lockdown coming and that things were going to shut down. It was going to be hard. I've always had a preparatory mindset, not prepper like I'm surrounded by buckets of beans and rice and a wall full of ammo. Nobody gets through the world that way.
Yeah.
We need each other. Most of the people in my life didn't have that mindset. So they were caught off guard. I made sure that I thought about some of the people I knew and picked up a few extra things just in case.
For them.
Oh,
how sweet.
Yeah. Because we have to be thinking about our fellow humans, and the people that we might need, because your fellow humans are your best asset. If they are people that are worthy of trust and that you care about, that is the thing to nurture. This is not the time to hoard and hide. You don't necessarily want to be sharing everything that you're up to with everybody, but you want to be somebody that everyone wants in their lifeboat, right?
In their foxhole.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. And you want to be seen by people you value as an asset to their lives. And don't be thinking about what you can get from somebody else. Think about what you have to offer.
Like how you can collaborate and
become an asset.
Joel Salatin talks about the commodities of the future will be people who can build things, grow things, or fix things. Those are really going to be the valuable skills. When you think about that, it's really, Can you grow things? Can you fix things? Can you build? Can you create something? What are your tangible skills? Which is opposite of where the whole AI and all that is going with the digital. It takes you back to, is this all by design? We are going in the opposite direction of what is going to help us survive.
We could be coming into a time where, I hope we're able to push back on this and resist and say absolutely not. But if something like digital ID becomes a thing, my online days may be over. They force you to have an online ID and that kind of thing. I will not participate in that future. So, Whitney Webb talks about, get a big hard drive and just go and download as many how-to videos as you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Store those things, store libraries. Fortunately,
Real
I've always
books.
loved physical books, and my house is full of them,
books.
all the manuals, real things.
Print them. Yeah.
I had a falling out with Amazon about 5 years ago. I don't use Amazon for anything. At the time, I had a fairly small Kindle library on I had an iPad, which I don't anymore. I have a privacy phone now and not an iPhone, but that's a whole other subject. But you know, we were pissed off at each other, and they deleted my entire Kindle library. Ooh. Everything I paid for, all gone.
They took their toys and went home.
Digital content too can be edited without you knowing.
You sign away your life with all the updates, right? You don't own any of it. You're giving permission to go into your email and contacts.
I also told my cellular provider where they could stuff it. I at first thought I was going to move a SIM card to my privacy phone. I was talking to them and saying, well, my SIM card isn't working. Oh, we'll send, we could give you an eSIM card. I said, no, I don't want that. I prefer something physical. Okay, well, we'll send you one. You just have to sign this contract. And I'm reading the fine print and I'm saying, no way on God's green earth I'm signing that now or ever. People reserve the right to go into your phone and make changes and do things. Share information with our partners, whoever they are. I have an internet-based phone number that isn't really associated with me in any way. It costs me like $5 a month.
That's not bad.
Nope. And works fine. As long as I'm home or if I'm in a place where I can get access Wi-Fi, there is going to be a different type of privacy SIM card in the future that would allow me to access a cell tower if I had to, if I was broken down by the side of the road. But the fact is, I hardly go anywhere. I go into town maybe once a month. I go to a population center that I hesitate to even call a city, but maybe once a year. I have no interest. I'm hoping to never see a major city again in my life.
Nora, tell me as we get toward the end here that you talk about traps that trip you up being panic and negativity or cynicism. This is something that a lot of people are saying is like a controlled opposition. There's a narrative out there trying to get people to think, what's the point, right? Like, why bother voting? Why a lot of these people with big voices that are saying doom and gloom are allowed to stay up is because they're trying to scare the bejesus out of everybody so that they're freezing them from taking any action and they think it's useless. So what can you tell us about these traps of having cynicism and panicking?
Well, I think cynicism, look, I'm a red pill kind of gal. I want to know what's true. I'm perfectly fine, and I rely on various alternative sources of journalism that I believe to be trustworthy. There's a lot of awful stuff out there, but I think it's important to understand if you're trying to navigate your way through a pitch dark room full of obstacles and clutter, and you're sure there are scary things in that room, you're not going to be able to find your way through unless you're willing to turn a light on. But you have to be able to see what's there so you know how to navigate around it, how to plan, how to think about things. Just keep a cool head and stay centered about it. I'm somebody that believes in the indomitability of the human spirit. I believe ultimately that truth always wins in the end. Truth is much easier to keep track of than lies. You
don't have to keep track of it.
Truth tends to be kind of self-evident to us. I do think ultimately that efforts underway to destroy and control us are ultimately going to fail. It's just a question of what the body count is going to be along the way, literally or figuratively. Ultimately, your worst enemy, other than, fear, which the best way out of that is focus on who and what you love. Because when you feel love for people in your life, that overrides fear every time. If you're looking to take care of things, you end up focused. I go into that protective mode where I don't really care how scary things might be. I'm going to be stepping up to the plate, and I'm going to do what needs to be done because of how I feel about the people I care about. Cynicism is just this horrible, ugly thing. We all know people like that. They're very defeatist in their attitude. They're not the people you want in your lifeboat. They can't trust anyone but themselves. Everyone else is just stupid or worthless. It's just all going to go to hell anyway. And those aren't the people you're going to be able to rely on, right?
A few people are popping into my head as you're saying this. That's exactly
and mine too.
That's
right?
exactly how they talk, what you just said.
Right, exactly. And I don't have time for that. I don't really want those people around me. It's not that I disagree with everything that they say. It's just that it's not useful.
It's disempowering.
It's not constructive. It doesn't help you strategize a better path forward. And look, I don't have any illusions about the idea that I'm out of the woods simply because I'm in the woods. I still have to pay attention. In the end, even with our best efforts, things could still fail. But I just want to go down knowing that I fought the good fight and that I was on the side of the better part of humanity. That's something I refuse to lose or surrender my own essential humanity. I'm not going to allow anyone or anything to take that away from me. And so I just want to die just a full human being and living the best possible life I can, taking care of those things and places that I love, and be a good steward to the land, a good neighbor, a good friend, and a good sister. Do what I can for the people I care about and try to anticipate as much as I can what might be necessary to get through this time and do what needs to be done. Another major pitfall is procrastination. Saying, well, yeah, in a couple of years, I might get a piece of land. If you understand what's happening, you understand that it's all turning on a dime and the wheels could fall off any day now. I'm not a doom and gloom person, but my attitude is you have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. If you prepare yourself to take care of your own needs, you'll never regret that. There will never be a point at which you're like, well, that was a waste of time. Like, never. There's only one video platform you can find this on anymore. In 2013, there was a documentary called American Blackout. It was totally wiped off the internet except off of one video platform, which is Odyssey. There weren't any recognizable actors.
Oh, okay.
So what it was, the situation was that
Hollerman, right? Hollerman, Tom Hollerman, isn't he the guy that...
I don't know who that is.
Oh, wait, I'm getting these names wrong. I know who you're talking about. He's the guy that prepares the bunkers and has done all the work.
It was done very realistically. It was a fictitious situation where an EMP hit and knocked out the entire grid across the United States. There was a scenario where you're following what is happening with all of these different people in different situations. There's a couple living in a Manhattan high-rise apartment. There are some teenagers stuck in an elevator. There's a young person living in a basement apartment in some town. There's a prepper family. They followed each of these groups pretty realistically in terms of what kinds of things they might be inclined to do. Of course, the first couple of days of the blackout, everyone's getting drunk and partying and having big barbecues because all the meat's going bad in the fridge, right? So, let's have a neighborhood barbecue. And then, well, now that's all gone. Now what are we going to do, right? As things progress, some people realize my flashlight doesn't have any batteries.
They're waiting for it to turn back on.
And it's not happening. Yep. Now there are people looting in the streets. And
they start getting hungry.
Oh, I found a can of peas, no can opener. Look at these different scenarios happening in the film, see your own scenario in there. And you just need to think about, what would I do differently in this situation? Because there's talk about grid instability, vulnerability, and efforts to limit our access to electricity. What would you do? I know people living in Cape Town, South Africa right now, they have 12 hours a day where the grid doesn't work. It gets hot and sticky. It's, coming to, whatever, a collapsed society near you.
Well, from what I understand, our transformers are basically built by China, right? I know Biden passed, like the first day he was in office, to fact, he allowed China to build our transformers, and they found out they built a back door into it where they can turn them off anytime they want. Go to Man in America podcast with Seth Holt. He's got several episodes of the insiders that are talking about it. It's a whole rabbit hole of vulnerability of our country. And how they said within a year, like 90% of the population would be dead if we lost power, because those transformers go out, power's out for years.
It takes a long time to rebuild those things, right?
So people would die of famine.
Not to sound like a bunker mentality person, but understand that there are all sorts of vulnerabilities associated with a centralized existence, and an existence that's based on centralized resources, like food. Like
outsourcing your survival needs to people who aren't trustworthy.
Right, exactly. Try to think of the ways in which you can improve. One of the things I did in Portland is I had somebody put in a large rain barrel associated with my roof. So there was supplemental water if needed. If for some reason the city water, either something contaminated it or it just wasn't available or whatever, I wanted an extra supply. And stored some water too. Think, what if? Not in a panic, but in a rational way. Look, everybody, no matter where you are, no matter what your situation is, there's always something that can happen. Disasters are striking every day of the year somewhere in the world. And sooner or later, most people experience something. I remember once in Portland, there was a 2-week power outage.
Wow.
It was in the winter. And you can, so heat wasn't working, and thankfully I wasn't living in Minnesota then, but you can put blankets in sleeping bags and light candles, and it sucks. It was so
it's still freezing.
So the first thing I did after that was I put in a wood stove and got firewood on hand. The next time they had the power outage, suddenly now it's a romantic adventure, and there's crackling fire, and you can cook and heat with it, and it's enjoyable, and it warms your bones and all of that. Just thinking in terms. And one other little secret, this is my own thing, but I truly believe in that you have to have some kind of magic, like even if it's little twinkly lights or something that delights you, or just some little luxury items that makes you feel good or makes you laugh or whatever. I think 80% of any survival or situation where things are just very difficult is mental and emotional, right?
Totally.
Your mindset. And so just, like I had a bug out bag, and I had twinkly lights in the bug out bag.
That's
so
awesome.
Like I'm going to have my little tent, and I'm going to string up little twinkly lights, and it's going to be just something that delights me a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And then things don't feel so dire.
That's it. Bingo.
Those little things, right?
There's a little bit of the pleasure or the joy. Yes, I totally get what you're saying with that. Takes the drudgery out of it.
I am all about creating atmosphere and magic and whatever
Agreed.
else. And so it's just those little things make a massive, massive, massive difference.
And they don't have to be expensive. They don't have to be fancy, but they just have to do it for you.
Right.
And you'll know by how you feel. That's great. That's awesome. Nora, this has been an incredible conversation. I will say, you're just so...
not my typical...
But I think it's good because we got to see another piece of your insight, which I think is a beautiful gift for everybody, because it was a topic area that we don't normally hear from you. You're well-versed in so many important areas. But again, this was really cool because it was a different side of you, which I think is interesting to your existing audience.
Something I will say as advice for anybody living in a city, if it's at all possible, get out. It's not going to get better. And I don't care who ends up in office, it's not going to get better.
Particularly if you look up and see if you're one of the first that are designed to be a smart city, the 15-minute city. Find out for sure if you're on that list. Jeez.
Right. Part of what has to happen in some of those places is that they have to somehow destroy the old infrastructure before they can put in the new one.
Which is what happened
like
in North Carolina.
Maui and Maui,
North Carolina.
All these places.
Reality. It's reality.
So it's really hard right now trying to find land and things like that. A lot of people who were inclined to do that have already done it, and there's not a lot available. There's some things available. You can still look, and it's still worth it if you have the means. But if you don't have the skills, if you are starting from scratch and you don't know anything about anything, and you think you're going to go out someplace and suddenly now you're going to forage and hunt and whatever. And I've got news for you. Within 15 minutes of the grocery store shelves going empty, everyone and their dog is going to be up in the hill shooting everything that moves to try to feed their families, right?
Yeah.
You have to be your own farmer, be your own grocer, right? As much as possible, and then find others that can help you. So you know you're not alone. It's really important because otherwise it's just too overwhelming. The other thing is that there's the Freedom Cells Network.
Yeah.
You know, where there are different people connecting with other people. Some of them have land where they're looking to bring people on, and other people are looking to move into a situation that's already established. There are ways of working that out, I network. There are also some entrepreneurs. I know there's one called, oh crap, what is the name of it? I think it's called Fortitude Ranch. I will not make any claims about these people or what they're doing, other than I've seen that they exist. It's like ex-military and law enforcement that have bought up all these off-grid plots of land in different states. They've created a situation where there are different kinds of living quarters. If you can afford it, they have cabins. If you can't, there are apartments or condos or like bunkhouses for people who really can't. It's set up like an Airbnb, so you can go and stay there and get a sense of whether you like it. But they have a centralized sort of like kitchen area and different things. And everybody plays a role in doing something. You have to agree to participate. But there's medical care on site, there are accommodations, you have access to hunting, fishing, growing food, storage, and security. They have people. I can't say that I totally endorse them because I don't know anybody there. I've seen what they're doing, and it's like, that's really interesting. If I were somebody just looking to make a quick exit and I was looking for a place to go, I might check that out. There are other places like that out there. You can look for communities of people that are interested in welcoming other, people to kind of create more of a decentralized situation. There are different options, in other words, to consider, right? And, it just starts with thinking about, where you'd like to be, what you value.
And I'll even throw in just speaking up and speaking your values and not being afraid of the backlash. Just
be who you are
in your world. Find who's right around you in your own immediate life. You can't be afraid to say, like, I want my freedom. Like, that doesn't seem right to me, or that I don't want my kid learning about that in school or whatever. We can't be afraid to speak our truth. Because you're never going to find your people if you're too afraid. They might be feeling the same way as you do, but they're afraid too, and they're looking for you.
Be authentic, be who you are, and let those that are compatible with that gravitate to you.
By not speaking up, you are condoning it. You're allowing it.
To fail to act is to act, right?
There you go. Nora, this is such a great conversation. Any final thoughts? And please let us know how we can help you.
I do some personal consulting, yes. My website is primalbody-primalmind.com. I also teach online courses, and they have a year-long certification course. Those students they're like family to me at this point.
What's the course on?
It basically takes a whole lot of different health-oriented topics and goes at them exhaustively. So that you understand how things work and how to connect dots when it comes to various health issues. And so if you go to primalcourses.com, you can find out more about that. I encourage people to think about joining the Price Pottenger Nutrition Foundation and becoming involved with our Food Freedom Project.
Yes,
we're doing a monthly live event. I just interviewed Nick Penelope, who's the EMF guy.
The EMF guy. He was on my show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Talked to him yesterday. So I'm friends with Catherine Austin Fitz. So we had Catherine, we had my friend Joel Salad, Marjorie Wildcraft, who's an old friend of mine.
I just went to a conference with her down in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
She's been on the show 3 times.
She's a good friend of mine.
That's amazing.
We've known each other for a long time.
I'm going to tell her we connected. That's hysterical.
So she's great. So anyway, what's cool about those events is that people who attend, it's done live. You can ask questions of that person. You have the ability to get on the chat and ask questions so that your questions can get answered more or less in real time during the course of the thing. And if you're a member, you get access to that event. You can go and if you missed it live, you can go back and
That's the
and
Food
watch it.
Freedom or the Price Pottenger? Remember?
Well, Price Pottenger Nutrition Foundation basically has this live event every month. We do a lot of food freedom oriented discussions, but we do a lot of different things.
Because I signed up for that.
We have a really great group of people on the board now. We've made all these changes. I think we're starting to really make a difference. And that means the world to me. It pays me absolutely nothing, but I put a good amount of time into it, and I'm working with the best imaginable group of people. So it's really great.
How do you put a price tag on satisfaction, right?
Right. That feeling, that sense of purpose and contribution. Kind of my MO. I feel the need to still be a part of the world, at least insofar as whatever I can do to in some small way contribute. I want to be able to do that.
Spoken like a true warrior, because you can't just sit idly in the ivory tower while knowing who's going to defend the little squirrels and the trees and the butterflies and your ducks. They're not in control of what's happening.
I side with the innocents in this world,
Yeah, me too. I've always been rooting for the underdog and defending the defenseless. That's the warrior. And that's
helping, people. Not everybody's ready to hear what, about whatever it is that they might need to do to safeguard their future. And that's fine. But to be a resource for people who are looking for help and support and all of that.
Yeah. No judgment. Everybody is where they is. And it's not, I look at it like it's not my job. It's like health, right? It's not my job to tell you what to eat. I'm just for freedom and your choice. You have a choice. Right. But I want people to make an informed choice. It's when they think they have an informed choice, but all this is happening without them knowing. And if they knew about it, they would not agree. Like chemtrails, spray aluminum and barium on your head. Would you say, great, thank you, sign me up?
Bring it on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, no, but that's what's happening.
I love a nice haze in the air.
Yeah, exactly. I love being poisoned with heavy metals. And people would not agree with it. And so that's
all
what
we can do is the best we can to safeguard our health and our safety and all of that. And just, understand that, I'm also of the belief in this world that there's always a way. I mean, there's always a way if you need to find one.
Yeah.
You might think that all the odds are against you being able to do this, that, or the other thing. Don't ever think that way. Understand that there are dozens of different ways of thinking about things. Even if you have no resources or money, there are ways of making things happen. As long as you open yourself up to thinking, okay, well, what could be a solution?
Yes, that's such a good point. See, that's the voice of the warrior, being resilient. And I think you have to have a gut feeling of benevolence and faith in the divine will of love. Ultimately, good will win out over evil. You have to have that in your heart, to no matter how dire. I can't even tell you some of the people. We have a show coming up. I interviewed someone that was a victim of satanic rituals as a child. The level of evil is beyond what people can imagine, but it's happening. My point is, no matter how bad it can get, we have to have faith that good will win in the end.
Well, and even if good doesn't win out over evil in the short term, don't let the darkness of the world get to you. Don't let it derail you. Be that little light, right? Yeah. Be that little flame on the dark mountainside. The beauty about light is that you can have a huge space of total darkness, and all it takes is one little match to light up that space.
You got it.
Be that match, be that little candle in the dark, and those that gravitate to light will find you.
One of my favorite sayings is, don't curse the dark, instead light a candle.
There you go. Absolutely.
Wise words, Nora. You're the wealth of wisdom.
You're very kind.
Well, what an honor to have you on the show. Your whole life is full of so much value for the rest of us, and I'm super grateful. Thanks for still being with us here. Please share this show with people you think might be open to it and it can help. Check out Nora's amazing book, her courses, and her blog. I mean, you read your blog posts, you're going to learn a lot. I know I learned a lot too, and you're just such an intelligent writer and very prolific, and I'm thrilled. And like I said, I've got a guest room with your name on it anytime.
And back at you.
I'll take you up on that one day.
Right,
Although I
sure.
might never leave. It's like that girl is still here in the tent. Yeah.
Does she have somewhere to go?
Yeah, I'm going to sick my goose on her.
Yeah, right. He'll.
Yeah, well, that'll be awesome. Everybody, well, thanks again. Do check out the show notes, and we'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Would you like to support my mission to help empower people all over the world to be all of who they truly are? If so, please subscribe to the show, leave a review on iTunes, and share it with a friend. And if you're looking to take immediate action to align your energy and optimize your health, visit amyfournier.com. Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite. Let's awaken her together in you. I'm your hostess, Amy Fournier, and I already can't wait to be with you again and for you to hear what I have planned for the next show.
Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. To learn more about Amy, check out her website, amyfournier.com. That's AMYFOURNIER.com. You can also check out Amy's live and on-demand virtual fitness and yoga classes and sign up for her newsletter to receive a free mini ebook of 3 of her top tips for making holistic health a lifestyle. Again, that's amyfournier.com. and get your ebook sent to your email immediately. Connect with Amy on the daily on Instagram at FitAmyTV, FITAMYTV, and watch many of the podcast episodes and subtopic clips on her YouTube channel, which is also FitAmyTV. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite.